GDP at 3.9% versus revenue at 12%. That is what we are talking about on EconoChat. Let's talk business with Mr. Daniel Steinmann. And very interesting talk, and we learn a lot from this to know that also that because there's a lot of people that they don't see and understand what the government really does. And if Mr. Daniel Steinmann is telling you that the government's contribution to the economy is 6.5 to 70%, that's a lot.
It's a lot.
That's a lot.
The government is the dominant player in the economy.
Yeah.
Not by a small margin, overwhelmingly so. And has been so for the last 25 years.
Yeah.
And it's also the reason why you often read in country reports the warning that the government is crowding out the private sector, meaning that government investment is taking the place of private sector investment. Now, this may be true, Elsevier, but it's only true on paper. It's only true if you look at it from an assignment that you would give to M students at university. On ground level, in practice, in reality, it is not true. What is more appropriate is to describe the government as an enabler. Because if the government does not guarantee certain investments, they will not happen.
Of course.
And if the government does not make certain investments by itself, they will not happen.
Definitely.
You know, and I'm very, very fond always of using the example of Nekatal. Now, you can remember the whole thing. I think Nekatal eventually overshot budget by about 80%. It was not close to, but it was on its way to become double the, twice as expensive as what it was budgeted for. If we look back today, that's irrelevant. For 100 and how many years, during the German colonial period, during the South African period, there was no water, substantial water in the south. There was Nauta Dam, and there's a very large date palm production unit at Nauta, relatively large, about 1,000 trees. You know, but that's it. Now Nekatal is there, and we are often mocked, especially in the media, for not knowing what we're going to do with the water. We know what we're going to do with the water, but we can only start developing all the off-stream, all the other bits, all the irrigation part, the agricultural side, now that the source is there.
Yeah.
You know, so, and people need to think a bit further than just the latest sensational story that they read somewhere on a social media post or so. If Nekatal, to me, is the prime example. In another 5 years or so, the cost of Nekatal would be irrelevant. The fact that massive amount of water has been captured there, and that is now available, and that we are working on developing the other parts of the thing, that is what becomes important. Now, this is where budgeting and revenue comes into it.
Yeah.
When the minister delivers his interim budget speech, he will give us updates on various benchmarks. And the most important is he's going to give us a view on where we stand. Remember, interim budget after the first 6 months for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
So it's not an academic exercise. It's a very practical exercise. It's very, the rest of the economy, all the economic players, they need that information because the Ministry of Finance is the only institution that have that information available in a neat and digestible way. So you will see in his budget speech, he will say, in terms of collections, we stand at 46%, which historically is maybe 0.5% up or 0.5% down. So he tells us where we stand now, and then he compares it to where we stood typically in the past at the same point. And then with revenue, remember what we've budgeted for revenue for this year is 100 billion Namibia dollar. That's a big chunk of dough. Sorry, it's the other way around. We've budgeted for 90 billion in revenue, 100 billion in expenditure.
Okay.
So there's a 10 billion shortfall. And when you have a 10 billion shortfall, as recently as 5 years ago, that would have been a crisis. With the economy going the way that it's been going since beginning of 2023, I wouldn't call it a non-event, but it is certainly not a crisis. So what is important with the interim budget is that we will get a very clear picture of where we are in this fiscal year, how much we've accomplished, both on the revenue, on the collection side,
Yes.
as well as on the expenditure side.
Mm.
And then we will see, are we above or are we below? And that'll give us an idea what we must do between now and the end of March next year.
Yeah, which is the last 6 months of the fiscal year.
Yes.
Yes, so that is what it is right here on Economic Chat. Let's talk business with Mr. Daniel Steinman. Interesting talk. GDP at 3.9% and this is revenue at 12%. We will definitely have another talk next week, same time, and that is after the interim budget. Thank you so much.